Mainstream media gives you the impression that there is nothing good about America. In direct contrast to that, my podcasts will prove by examples that America has always been and still is the land of opportunity for everyone. Welcome to another episode in Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. My guest today is Dr. Li Meng-Yan. Although you may not recognize her by name, you might recall that in April of last year, she made international news for her bold escape to the United States from Hong Kong after making claims that the COVID virus was created in a bioweapons lab in Wuhan, China. Before we start our discussion with Dr. Yan, I'm going to give you some background on her story. Dr. Yan is a physician. She has an MD, but she also has a PhD in ophthalmology. In addition, after receiving her PhD, she carried out postdoctoral research in immunology and vaccines for 5 years at the World Health Organization H5 Reference Laboratory at the University of Hong Kong. And that's where her story takes an important turn. In January of 2020, during her research in that biolab, she was asked by the experts in the Hong Kong lab where she worked to investigate what was then called the Wuhan pneumonia that was sweeping the city of Wuhan. She was one of the first scientists outside of the bioweapons lab in Wuhan to get access to the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which we call now the COVID-19 virus. She was able to get samples of that and analyze it. Her analysis led her to conclude that the COVID virus was not the result of direct transmission from bats, as was previously claimed by the Chinese government, but that it was engineered in the Wuhan laboratory to be a bioweapon. Furthermore, she believed that the spread of the virus was not the result of an inadvertent lab leak, but might have been intentional. Dr. Yan's findings were publicly broadcast across China in January of 2000, revealing to the world for the first time that the COVID virus was easily transmitted between humans, and as such, it presented a terrifying threat to the entire planet. Furthermore, and perhaps more importantly, she claimed that there was a cover-up in place so that the Chinese government could avoid getting blamed for the virus. Soon after her revelations, Beijing silenced her. She was called a liar and urged to keep silent and be careful. And in a chilling warning, she was told that she could be disappeared. Fearing for her life, on April 28th last year, Dr. Yan fled to the United States to warn the world about her findings and China's plans to weaponize coronaviruses. Despite the ongoing threats, since arriving in the United States, Dr. Yan has persisted in speaking and publishing technical articles to bolster her claims about COVID being a virus that was engineered at the Wuhan lab under the direction of the CCP. But from the moment that she landed in the U.S., she came under intense criticism by many, even in our own country and in our own medical research community. She published 3 research papers supporting her claim, but experts in the scientific community said that the study's claims were more easily explained by political motivations rather than scientific integrity. In other words, they said that Dr. Yan was just trying to embarrass the CCP and cause a further rift in the relationship between the U.S. and China that President Trump had initiated. But quite recently, new evidence has come to light that supports Dr. Yan's claims. Through the Freedom of Information Act, Dr. Fauci's emails have been made public, and they indicate that the Wuhan lab was indeed involved in COVID research, and that Fauci even authorized a grant to the Wuhan lab for research into gain of function on the original bat virus. Now that you know the basic elements of her incredible story, let's talk to Dr. Yan and delve more deeply into the details and discover what is happening now. Dr. Yan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Bob. It's my honor to be in your studio and also have this kind of conversation with you today.
Your story is very interesting. It combines your impressive technical accomplishments with ethics, bravery, and a bit of mystery and even danger. It is a very complex story, so I have a number of questions for you, but feel free to, go on and in any direction you wish and to get to the essence of these stories.
Sure.
Why do you believe the COVID virus was engineered and not the result of a direct spread from bats?
There are so many reasons, and the very clear one is based on the scientific evidence. We have the genome sequence of this virus, SARS-CoV-2, and the genome sequence is like human's fingerprint. So you compare the genome sequence between the known virus, and you will see the origin if it comes from the nature. And also, you can see the artificial evidence in the genome sequence if they've been modified in the lab. So, based on my expertise in the virology field, I and my team, we actually identified many smoking guns to show that this virus has been done through the gain of function modifications, and the evidence are left in the genome sequence. And that is just a part of the functions after all the change.
The principal thing, I would think, as a former scientist, you got examples of the actual virus that is spreading around the world. You got samples of that, and you compared it to the actual virus that is in bats. And you see there's a difference between them.
Yeah, it's like that. And I can, for the analogy, it's more like, for example, if you are a surgeon, very experienced one, and when you see a patient, and you will recognize that this nose is after the plastic surgery, and the eyelid is made like several years ago, because you have compared between these samples, and this one cannot come out except you do something to put it in.
I understand. And having friends who are plastic surgeons, it's a very good example. Now, why do you think that it was intentionally released rather than just by accident?
There are many evidence point to that. For example, the basic thing is I worked in the biosafety level 3 labs, and which is similar to the labs in Wuhan. They have the biosafety level 4, even higher. And I can tell you, this kind of labs, they have very strict protocols because people know they are doing the very dangerous work inside. And I can take example of my lab. I worked there for several years, involve a lot of dangerous work, and we have surveillance system. And also, everyone, you get trained, you get background checking by the government to show you are safe. And then when you go to the lab to do the experiment, you need to have change all the clothes, and you go out, you have shower, and again change the clothes. So that means the only alive creature can come out from that lab is human. There is no chance that, for example, when people are talking about animal setting, there is no chance the animal can be sold out if they have came into such labs. They will be cooked in a high temperature autoclave procedure, come out as cooked meat, even they are not get infected. And the virus or other pathogens, if you want to burn out, they have very strict procedure, and you have to inactivate, means you kill it. And of course, we know there was some record happened like in Singapore and Taiwan and other places. They show that there was some lab accident. However, such lab accident would be controlled anytime in a very strict way, and no government would do something like what Chinese government has done to make up evidence, to make the cover up, to put military there to cover all the things, to cheat the world just because of one lab accident. And more importantly, there was no even people get infected from the lab in Wuhan at that time.
But it could have been an accidental discharge, no?
You have to have this accidental first. Who has done that? How could they, if this is accident, so the person handle it and the people around, because it's high transmissible virus.
Yes.
So if he get infected, the other people is in a high risk. And we haven't got any evidence. And actually, based on my intelligence, there was no people get infected.
So no people in the lab, in the Wuhan lab, not your lab. No people in the Wuhan lab.
In that Wuhan lab,
and let me understand the difference between them. Your lab was doing basic research on various kinds of viruses and immunology. So you are very familiar with this kind of work.
We do something like involve very dangerous virus. Because my lab is the top emerging infectious disease lab in the world. And we have the best scientists for coronavirus, influenza, or such virus.
So why would China have two labs? One, the WHO lab that you're in, and in Hong Kong, and another lab in Wuhan.
China has more than two. If you're talking about such high biosafety labs, my lab is definitely the one has the best quality in the world, and it's based in Hong Kong, have very good reputation. And that's why actually the outside, international scientific world, they won't realize that actually my lab turns out an international bridge between scientific world and the Chinese government and the military. And also, the biosafety lab, like biosafety 4 lab, there are not only one in China. In Harbin, very northeast China, close to North Korea, there is also another one. And it's also a military civil fusion labs. And they are doing the high pathogen avian influenza virus study and other relative studies. And also China now, even since the outbreak, put more money, billions of money, to make more biosafety 3 or higher labs in China. Why do they need so many labs? The doctors, they calling me, said, we don't know what we can do. We don't know anything about this level of lab, but we know we get chance to get the grants from government to build such labs. So we need your help.
Let me repeat that again. So you have colleagues still in China, and they're asking you, in discussions, they're saying, we just got information from the CCP, from the government, saying we're interested in giving you grants to open another high-level laboratory to study viruses. Is that correct?
Already confirmed. That was last year, early February 2020. For example, because I have the very intensive network there, extensive,
yes.
Like from military to civil scientists, and even reach to China CDC headquarters office. So like some people call me that they need our help because they already got 2 billion RMB, which is like 300 million US dollar. And the China government want to build the BSL-3 lab in that hospital, a very big one, within half year. And they have no idea how to handle such laboratory, so they need our help.
I see. So again, the lab in Wuhan, who did it report to? Who ran that lab?
Actually, that institute is one of the leading virology institute in Chinese military civil fusion network. So military and also civilian scientists run it together. So that's why when the outbreak happened in Wuhan, actually even from January 2020, people in that institute already know that that whole institute was formerly took over by the military. And later on, I think outside also heard about the news.
And you mentioned earlier with me that you've studied documents about bioweapons. Tell us more about what those documents say.
There are a lot of things we can talk about these documents. So first, I had obtained a lot of documents from the military and government in China.
This is during, not recently, this is while you were in China.
For this document, actually, I started to study it since I came to America.
Okay.
Because previously I showed the scientific evidence and the intelligence about the things. And then later on, my team had discovered a lot of such evidence, and they turned to me, and I went through, and I know more about the strategic development.
Yes, tell
of
us
the
about
bioweapon.
that. Tell us about the strategic issues.
Briefly, that Chinese Communist Party, they want to develop bioweapon, and that is not the secret. Even back to right after World War II, that new China established. The Chinese government, they took over the part left by the Japanese military. They studied bacteria, right? So they took over that. Even they got some of the scientists from the Japanese military. And then later on, during 1990s, when Soviet Union broke down, some of the Russian scientists came to China, and they also helped the Chinese government to learn the technology. However, because of biotechnology developed very fast in the past over 20 years, and when Chinese government focused more in this field, they realized that this will be one of the best strategy for the Chinese government to achieve their goal in world dominance.
I see. So in other words, the Chinese government realized that through the weaponization of viruses and bacteria, they could infect enemies without the enemy ever knowing where it came from.
That's the way they want to do. And that's why from end of 1990s, China has realized that World War III will be the biowarfare. And they have mentioned it in a military speech. And also after that, because, there is a Bioweapon Convention Treaty, right? So China get involved into the treaty since 1970s. So they know they cannot do it openly because they're under surveillance. However, Chinese government is so sophisticated and cunning. So they managed to study this kind of law system and also study the biological system. And they try to find the weakness. And they managed to escape all the supervision and all the accountability.
Sure. If you think about missiles, it's rather easy from space using satellites to see where people are building, where countries are building missile launchers and things like that, or if they're producing nuclear weapons, it requires a huge facility. So all those things can be easily seen from space using satellites. But nobody knows what's happening in a laboratory, and you can't determine that from any easy way.
People can see that because they publish the articles. However, the thing is, if you are building like the military base, and then other countries are very sensitive to this.
Yes.
However, in scientific field, we talk about exchange the knowledge.
I see.
And the biology, because it developed very quickly, so the law cannot catch up with this speed of the development.
I understand.
Bio-use, gain function, always the issues.
Yeah, and you can always say you're studying it to make sure that you can cure it if it ever happens.
Exactly. Right. You always can show you have the good purpose in the study.
Good intentions. I understand.
And also China really focus on learning the problem happen in the system. I can take you several examples. For example, China studies the bioweapon conventions, and then they realize that from 2005, the countries talk about we need the observatory organization. So at that time, they point out the World Health Organization as the only surveillance organization. What China has done is from the next year, 2006 until 2017, they managed to promote the Hong Kong doctor Margaret Chan to be the general secretary in WHO.
Okay, let me repeat that again. I'll make sure I understood. So sometime in the 2000s, when everyone realized that the field of biology is expanding very quickly, probably because of the understanding of genetics, of course, that they said, all the countries agreed, we're going to have an organization to observe and to make sure every country is obeying, is following the rules of this bioweapon organization. It's going to follow the rules. And then China said, oh, okay, that sounds right. And we'll maneuver. So the head of that inspection organization is one of us.
Yes. And after that, later on in some conference of Bioweapon Convention, they also said we need more observatory organizations. For example, NIH, like a U.S. Army Medical Institute, University Johns Hopkins, or like this, and check. If you go into the record, you will see after that how many effort Chinese government has put to infiltrate such organizations. For example, when I talk about the origin of the SARS-CoV-2 come from the military lab, Johns Hopkins University, some scientists jump out quickly to deny it.
I see.
They are helping China, and China's effort show the result.
And China has influence over those particular doctors or over that whole Johns Hopkins lab? Both.
They can never control all the people,
right?
But they can control the influential people or manipulate to influence them.
And you have evidence to show that? I mean, did they get grants? I see. Okay.
There are a lot of connections, and I reviewed that some of this in my third reports. Mm-hmm. And like, for example, when CNN at that time invite some scientists like Robert Gallo from Maryland University, he's the big titan in HIV study. His study helped Dr. Anthony Fauci to become the director in NIH in 1990s.
I see.
And Robert Gallo is also one of the biggest guy, together with Johns Hopkins at almost same time, jump out to deny and suppress my origin. And his claim has no scientific explanation. He's using that very Chinese propaganda style to beat me. And he has his institute in China from early 2000 named after him, Gallo Institute.
In China?
Yes.
I see.
And he has business with Chinese government in Hong Kong. And right after he did all these things attacking me, he got a big award from the Chinese government at the end of 2020.
Unbelievable. How much influence they have in this country.
Exactly.
Unbelievable. Now, getting back to the release of the virus from the Wuhan weapons lab, if it wasn't by accident, then it was intentional. Now, why would the Chinese, when I say the Chinese, I mean the CCP, why would they release a virus for which they didn't have a cure? Wouldn't they know that their own people would be killed by it?
First thing is Chinese government thought it's under the control because they underestimate the high transmissibility of SARS-CoV-2.
All right, so let me think a minute. So you're implying that they let it out to test it on humans, to test it to see how fast it would spread and what the effects.
Optimize it.
I see. To then change it to then even make the vaccine even more dangerous. Is that correct? They wanted. Why would they test it?
It won't be for the vaccine. I mean, it can have the help, provide the knowledge to develop vaccine. Of course, one hand they develop it, the virus. One hand they develop the drug and vaccine.
Yes.
However, they the most things they want to, based on their strategies, also described in their documentary, and also as what we think finally, is more like they are doing this because before they formally release it, they want still finalize to know some kind of result happened in human, and they thought it's under the control. I can tell more about this because a lot of evidence clearly shows that from at least early 2019, Chinese government has, before that, they had done a lot of change arrangement in the system, in the institutes, biology institute, and in the hospital, even in the military. And in 2019, from early that year, they started to do a lot of fire drills in the military combined with the CDCs, especially in that province and in Wuhan city. At least 5 these kind of fire drills. They have different collaboration with different like hospitals or CDC.
So
or
what
other,
you're saying is they were preparing. By doing these drills, they were preparing for the actual release of COVID-19.
Yes, and they clearly mentioned that this is prepare for the military games at the end of October held in Wuhan. They always, in the military games, there may be the infectious disease, and especially in 2 of them, they have emphasized the coronavirus, the novel coronavirus. They claim that there will be the imported cases to China with novel coronavirus. So they practice the way how to handle, how to control, how to do all these things.
So they thought that they knew how to control the new COVID-19. Is that correct? And
they predicted there will be novel coronavirus come out at time that World Military Games.
And that was at the end of 2019?
End of October.
And that is exactly when it started in Wuhan. Is that correct?
I think right around after that,
yes,
it happened in Wuhan. And also, I can tell you 2 more evidence that because there are a lot of evidence, and 2 more things I think are very important. One thing is Chinese government made a biggest and also the first this kind of practice after SARS-CoV-1 in 2003, in the middle of 2019, to practice emerging disease can happen in military games. Over 8,200 people all over China joined this practice. So China actually treated it very seriously. And another thing is in the PLA's document.
What is PLA?
People's Liberation Army, CCP's military. They have clearly mentioned in their strategies, especially that is a strategies to use coronavirus as novel genetic bioweapon target human. They said we can think about the big gathering like the Olympics, Winter Olympics, or other games, because a lot of people come from different areas
all
to
over the world.
One place.
Yes.
And when they leave, after a short while, they carry the pathogen all over the world.
Perfect.
And you cannot find the origin.
Frightening. Tell me now about your decision to leave. You must have been under observation by the government because you made these claims publicly. You thought you were doing everybody a favor by saying, look, this is easily transmissible between humans and looks like it was engineered. And so I would think that you were followed or they were watching you. How did you manage to escape?
Oh, actually, the moment I decide to tell the world, and it's not looks like from lab, I concluded that from the lab because there was smoking gun evidence I already found at that time. I know government because they have done the artificial surveillance against people. So, I mean, at any minute, I can be disappeared. I already received the warning. However, I just want to deliver the message as early as possible before I'm disappeared. And since I start to deliver all this message, like I can summarize the 5 main messages through Mr. Lude's media at that time. The first one is Chinese government covering up the outbreak in Wuhan. So after 4 hours, when Lude's broadcast was on, Chinese government has to admit that was midnight in China. They admit that the cases number from 62, they insist only 62, turns to 198. And also soon after they admit more cases happen not only in Wuhan, but other big cities in China. Mm-hmm. The second one is I told people, human-to-human transmission already exists, but Chinese government doesn't allow you to know that. And actually, government know that even in December 2019.
So up until then, they were, and maybe still to now, they believe they are claiming that the virus was transmitted from a bat.
No, this thing is before that they claim this is not transmit from human to another human. Right. That means it's not infectious among humans.
Yes.
So people won't realize the danger of this virus, and the public health, the control measurement will be totally different.
I understand.
So that's why when I reveal it before that, even WHO before that tell the world that don't worry, not transmit from human to human.
Then how could there be 100 cases? It's not
so
all
that's
from
why
bats.
they only said they
right?
have 62.
Yeah, I see.
And they said this all come from bat
or
animal.
They were in that restaurant, or they're in that.
At that time,
market,
Chinese government forced the diagnosis has to require one thing, that no matter how sick you are, how positive your result is, you have to admit you've been to that seafood market.
I see. Okay.
That is totally,
nonsense.
Disagree
right.
with the public health.
I see. So you were also the first person to reveal that this is going person to person.
I'm not the one reveal because they already know it in December, but I'm the first one to reveal it to public and to the scientists. China government has to admit it the first time within 24 hours.
How did you know, or how did you come to the conclusion?
This one, because these two parts is because I have went through my own extensive network in China.
I see. From other people.
From as I said,
other experts.
CDC office and local hospital, military laboratory, all these things reflect to me. And I can make judgment because I'm the expert in this field.
Mm-hmm. So you must have heard that many of those people were never in that market.
Yes. So Chinese government won't give that people who deny they've been to the market the diagnosis. And they are just left in the hospital.
I see.
Yeah, they are even not the number.
I see. Okay, I understand.
And the third thing is that the seafood market is the smoke screen, and also there is no animal intermediate host. So that means this is directly for people, for human. At that time, they try to blame something like civet cat, raccoon dog, bat, and whatever animal, even snake or penguin, but turns out these are all the lies. Mm-hmm. And they just try to let you believe that from bat to animal to human because we Chinese people eat animals.
I see.
Yeah, and the fourth thing is, if Chinese government doesn't control it in time at that time, there will be bigger outbreak and even pandemic all over the world soon, and also there will be endless emerging variant during the circulating, and that's what we have seen now, what happened.
Okay, so you made those revelations in public, either through YouTube or through discussions. Then how did you evade the Chinese Communist Party or the military or the police? How did you avoid getting caught?
I was anonymously deliver message.
Okay.
The only people at that time know my identity was Mr. Lude.
I see.
I'm lucky. I know I may only have one chance to try to find someone can deliver the message out to give China government the warning to push them to respond and stop such things.
I see. And for the viewers, there is an individual who's an influencer on YouTube, the Chinese version of YouTube. It's in the U.S. and his name is Lude, Lude. And if you speak Chinese or read Chinese, that you can watch him. He's a very well watched by the American Chinese community. I'm pretty sure you can't watch him in China. Is that correct? YouTube, you can't see him in China.
In mainland China, no. And people who listen to his media, because he's so influential, and they were put into prison. There were cases online from the court.
Wow. Okay, so therefore, now you've answered my question. That's how you were able to get on a plane and come to the United States.
So the thing is, I keep doing this from 19th January 2020, the first time the message delivered, until end of April.
And during that time, you reported to your superiors, right? You have a boss in your institute, in your laboratory. You, from what I understand, you told them this is how I see it. And what did they say to you?
Oh, the thing is, from end of December, the first time I was appointed to do this, to mid-January, right on 17th January, actually, I keep feedback the time when I received the message to my boss. And my boss, Dr. Liu Peng, and also my big boss, Dr. Malik Paris, who is the top one coronavirus expert and also the emerging disease doctors in the world, they know this. However, first thing they choose to cover up with Chinese government. And then later on, I realized Malik even get involved, as I said, international bridge to provide knowledge and help Chinese government to organize and manipulate the misinformation campaign. So they are not innocent in this thing. That's why when I realized the last point, the virus come out from military labs with genetic evidence. At that time, because I say they keep silence, they delay the time, and they warn me again that if I don't keep silence, I will be disappeared and no one can help me. I know I won't trust them. So I deliver all by myself. And later on, the work I have done to review these things, including how these people help Chinese government and international scientific
And still
field.
helping them.
They keep do you know that early February, Peter Daszak from Echo Health in America organized a letter published on Lancet. So there are 27 scientists, including Peter Daszak, all over the world. They signed it. The Lancet letter told people that this is from nature. And anyone claims the lab origin is conspiracy. And also China government has done a lot of good effort, contribute to anti-COVID. We should all learn from that. My boss, Liu Peng, signed it. And my boss, Malik Paris, received it. This can be verified later from the FOIA letter from Peter Daszak. And then Malik actually more sophisticated, so he didn't sign, but he's doing more things behind. So that's why I'm the first one revealed to the world through the media. Right after the publish of this letter, I said, this is lying. And they are using this international influence from the top medical journal to suppress the discussion about the origin of SARS-CoV-2.
Okay, so and how did you get into the United States? Did you have a visa? Because normally getting into the U.S. from a foreign country, especially from a Chinese or Chinese-related country, is difficult. So did you have a visa to you just bought a ticket and flew and landed in where? L.A.? Where did you land?
I was lucky at that time. I'm the Hong Kong citizen, and also I had a valid U.S. visa.
You already had a visa.
I already had it.
Because you've been traveling to the U.S. for conferences and things.
Yes.
I understand.
And also, there is no travel ban for Hong Kong citizens to America, but for mainland citizens, they can't come here.
I see.
And especially at that time, right after my escaping, China government get angry and post the national security law in Hong Kong. So when I escaped, that is still, I'm lucky. After that, China government doesn't want it to happen again, so they immediately post it. And I got the help from Mr. Luder. And also I got help at that time from a foundation that we thought it is anti-CCP. And they provide me the tickets, fly from Hong Kong to Los Angeles and later go to New York.
And is this a U.S. Foundation?
Oh, that is a non-profitable foundation established by an exiled billionaire who claimed he's anti-CCP in America.
Yes.
His name is Miles Wengui Guo, and he has done a lot of the broadcast in public to show that he's anti-CCP. And we also thought he anti-CCP at that time. However, since I came to America, I get a chance to know him more. And more I know him, more I and Mr. Luder, because we work together, we realize, and also some other people, we realize he actually as a CCP agent who...
This story gets more and more complicated, and that doesn't mean it's not true. Frankly, it probably means it is true. The Chinese are dedicated to take over countries. You know, they're making moves against Taiwan. They're entering Taiwan airspace. It is not a good time. And unfortunately, the current administration, in my view, is not taking China seriously or as seriously as the Trump administration did. So you think that Mr. Guo, who initially helped you, is actually working for the CCP?
Yes, at that time, Mr. Luder also turned to us because I don't have any direct contact to Guo. And Luder thought Miles Guo is anti-CCP, and there is a foundation he established. He called that is to help anyone who's anti-CCP.
I see. So that's perfect because then you can identify who the enemies of CCP are. Anybody connected to that new foundation. It's
that
great.
took
It's a trap.
while.
It's a trap.
It is a trap, and actually, my experience is really so special because at that time, some group in the CCP, they got the information that I will escape. So they managed to try to disappear me in Hong Kong. And I was lucky get avoid like the poisoning. And on the other hand, this side, Miles Guo, he thought, okay, then if he helped me go there, he can hold me in his hand. And he thought I'm a girl, so easily to manipulate me. And he even thought there would be some network behind me that he can dig out and also report to CCP, then he can get more awards.
I see.
That is his tricks. However, I didn't let him win, and he cannot manipulate me as he expected. So that's why when early this year, he realized that he's in trouble. So he become more clearly to show that his hospitality and more evidence come to me that he is actually helping CCP. And under the help from the people in America, the very experienced, for example, the Special Force Colonel Lawrence Sadding, and other people from the intelligence department, and other people even I don't know who they are. I managed to get escape from the this kind of attack and harms launched by Miles Guo and CCP. And I cut off all the connection with him, and I also realized how dangerous this person, how bad he is, and I'm helping the relative department to provide some evidence I know about his criminal sins.
And where does this individual live? Does he reside in the United States or China? Where does
This person is still in New York, and that foundation is still in New York. And they try to show the anti-CCP and then get close to conservative parties.
I see.
And like people like, especially like President Trump at that time. And then they want to use this way to ruin the reputation of the conservative parties.
Complicated. Okay, get back to your trip. So you got on a plane and you landed in L.A. Was anything special about when you landed? You went through customs, immigration, and got a connecting flight to New York. What happened when you landed in L.A.?
It's kind of like the movie. So when I land in Los Angeles, I went through the custom very smoothly, and I came to get my luggage. When I get my luggages, turns out go to the exit because I have 8 hours for transition to go to New York. At that time, 2 custom officers.
Wait, usually when you have a connecting flight, you just drop off the luggage. You pick it up where you first land, right? And then you take it over to another station where they check it in for the next flight.
I think that is the tickets when they bought me. It's like the one is go to here, another is
separate
domestic.
ticket.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first ticket is Cathay Pacific
Understood.
from Hong Kong.
Understood. Okay. So you picked up the luggage and you're ready to leave the terminal?
Yeah. And right after I turn back, I see 2 custom officers waiting for me. They just stand there, and when I walk towards the exit, they said, okay, come with us. And I thought because I'm the virologist, as a virologist, every time when I came to America for conference, they need to ask me a lot of things and double check my background when I go to apply visa. So I thought maybe this time they won't do it in the custom. Then I went with them, and they are very well prepared, actually. And later on, one more officer joined them. They even prepare one Chinese officer who can speak Chinese. I think he's American, of course. So they asked me a lot of questions.
They took you to a room somewhere.
No, not room counter initially.
Oh, really? The counter?
Yeah.
Okay.
And because they asked a lot. And at that time, finally, I think I have to tell them why I came to America, right? And so I tell them, look, I come to America because I'm the whistleblower. And please...
A whistleblower.
Yes. Please help me. I said, I'm very nervous because China is after me. And I don't want to do anything wrong. So I will tell you why I came here, what I'm going to do. But please protect me. Because I'm really worried at that time China government can catch up.
Of course.
And so they said, then we need to know more and then get my phone because I told them I'm the whistleblower of the COVID-19. I said I'm the only one tell that is from the lab as an insider. And I said, they asked me for evidence. I said there are some evidence about my discussion with people in China on my WeChat, in my phone, and also many evidences here in my brain. So they brought my phone and they checked my luggages, and after hours they bring the FBI. And the FBI told me that we believe you, but we need to verify it. Would you like to talk to us? If you can convince us, we will let you take the flight to go to New York. I said, okay. And I actually was very happy because I finally see the alive FBI agent. And I thought, oh yeah, come on, let's do that. So the FBI agent stayed with me in a room and I explained to them about...
At the airport?
Yes.
Still, okay. Did they record? Did they make a recording?
They write down all the things with their witness. And they asked, basically they understood what happened from my confidential investigation to what I revealed initially in January to Ludus Media. And that already took several hours. And then they said, okay, so we think it's the time you need to take the flight to go to New York. Would you like to help us when you go to New York to do the further investigation? I said, why not? So they took my phone for duplicate, yes. And they said they will return it within 2 days, mail it to me. And also, Homeland Security people came, and they had discussion with FBI, and then they came to me and said, do you need our help? I said, yeah, I need your help. I'm scared. Then they are gone. Later, I know that this is called invisible protection.
I see.
And FBI accompanied with me to go to do the checking for the next flight. And I went to New York very well. And then later on, FBI from Los Angeles flew to New York to give my phone and also introduce the New York FBI to me. And we have some
And that took place where? In your hotel in New York?
In the apartment I lived at that time.
I see.
Very interesting. They are so hurried to meet me, even make me so scared because that lady from Los Angeles airport, FBI, she came to New York. She wanted to meet me at that time. And I told her to meet her next day, but she seems very hurried. She wanted to meet me early as possible. So she somehow directly came to my apartment, and I was outside. When I came back at night, immediately she come to knock the door, and she knocks the door in a very loud way. I thought that would be someone sent by CCP. I cannot trust her even. So at that time, I thought they can even shoot me because they have gun. If not, why they knock the door so loudly and came to my apartment in this way? So that was a misunderstanding.
Sure.
But that was really a great experience for me.
Frightening. A little frightening. So because of your revelations, you can't return to China because your life will be at risk. So it seems to me that you should easily qualify for an asylum visa. Did you talk to them about changing your visa? Because under a visitor visa, which is what you have, you can only stay, I believe, for 90 days, and then you have to leave. So what did they help you get? Did they give you any information or any assistance in staying in the United States? You would think they'd want you to stay here.
There's something the private part, I cannot tell that in public, but I can say it because I don't want to stay in America with the illegal status. So yes, my asylum was filed, and I haven't got the further progress from the immigration department, which I don't know why, because I get feedback that FBI confirm I'm highly credible. Just because CCP agent, actually like Miles School, had threat in public that CCP they can do anything to disturb my identity, my status in America. They said they can do this through immigration system. They can brought me back to China even overnight in whatever way. So I don't know what exactly they have done. And so I'm now just waiting to see what will happen. And because I'm busy with pushing the anti-CCP and also revealing the COVID-19 truth, pushing all the things forward, I didn't spend much time in discussing or handling these issues.
Yeah, it's important, but you have other things. Now, given that you've made your revelations, the major revelations that the COVID-19 was designed in a laboratory, in a military laboratory. It was probably, according to you, intentionally released. So you've made these very important revelations damaging to the CCP. You've made them in public. This isn't the first time you've talked about it. You've been on CNN. You've been on Fox News, on Tucker Carlson.
Not on CNN. CNN didn't give me the live broadcast.
Oh, they did not?
They sent request, and I said, because you are the TV and I don't trust CNN, I said, except for live broadcast, I won't accept your interview. And then they just post the fake news without contacting me.
I see. Oh, all right. I understand. But certainly, Tucker Carlson,
Yeah.
you've told the story there. So perhaps you're safe now from the CCP because there's nothing more for you to say, probably, maybe.
So they call that this is high profile.
Yeah.
This is more high profile you are, the more safe you are. However, I'm kind of based on the intelligence report from America, I'm the individual who get the most kind of attacks from the CCP government. I mean, maybe the top one. So Chinese government definitely doesn't want to see me keep working on this.
I see.
So they are
I
using
see.
other way rather than directly kill me by CCP
I see. I see.
officials or someone. They actually, for example, they are using my family members to conducting the fox hunting project. So fox hunting is like, this is FBI has reviewed some cases before that China government has this project and the target is the fox. So whoever they want brought back to China or disappeared outside, they use their friends or their acquaintance or their family member to cheat them. And in this way, during the process, they can handle the person either brought back to China or disappear them outside. And I received the intelligence that warned me my husband was sent to America to do this kind of job, and only thing he will do is to make the emotional killing, which won't be very suspicious for public, because between couples, to make me disappear.
And you haven't seen your husband. He's in the U.S. now.
Because after that, under the help, I'm hiding.
Yeah. Smart.
Thank you.
Now, your recent interview in the Daily Signal, which is a news website for a very prestigious organization, the Heritage Foundation, interviewed you, and all of a sudden that entire interview, which they published, if people want to send that to other people on Facebook, it's not allowed, disallowed on Facebook. Now, I can understand why the Chinese Communist Party doesn't want your claims to be broadcast or to be publicly available. But why would Facebook ban you? It's almost as if they're doing the dirty work of the Chinese Communist Party.
Facebook is not the only big tech to do this kind of dirty work for Chinese Communist Party. Chinese Communist Party is very rich, and they brought money from our Chinese people, poor Chinese people, and used the money to corrupt and to manipulate the big techs. Not only Facebook, but like Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all these kind of social media. If you want to talk about the darkness, things really make Chinese government painful. Especially the truth of virus, you will see that you are suspended or you are labeled as misinformation.
Yes, misinformation.
Yes, and also this kind of company together with the mainstream media like CNN, New York Times, and Bloomberg, Wall Street Journals, with some people inside, they are conducting the censorship and the propaganda for Chinese Communist Party. And we called it actually this is part of strategies for the communist regime to achieve their world dominance by, suppression, brainwashing, and also silence others. This is not surprise because it's also part of the biggest strategy organized by the communist people for decades.
So what lies in the future? What do you plan to do now? You've made the revelations as much as you can. What more can you do to help Americans wake up to the threat from China?
That is a very good question. There are a lot of things we can do, and I believe that the first thing is when I decide to come to America, at that time, I believe the hope is in America. And that is a place, if we can solve this pandemic, we can end this kind of evil plan, the hope is in America. When I came to America after over 1 year, and especially recently, I've been to the tour speeches with the Global COVID Summit team and a lot of frontline doctors, and we have met people from Hawaii to Alaska to face-to-face give them this kind of evidence. I realize that the real hope is American people, the brave American patriots, the American people who have the strong faith and have the justice, who understand the value of freedom and democracy and human rights, who knows that American Constitution, who want to stand with that to protect their next generation and the future of human. So this is the hope. So I want, and I'm doing is to help people to understand how evil the Chinese government is with the evidence, especially the truth of COVID-19, how they made the virus, how they develop other things in their labs, and how they release, how they using misinformation, fake evidence, censorship, mandate, all this to control you, to turn you into their slave. And what could we do to end it? I'm providing this kind of knowledge and evidence to people, and I hope to see their courage. Because when we all stand up to fight against the evil communism ideology with our courage, we have more and more power. And I believe that one day we will win. And on the other side, what I'm focusing on is I want to help American because China want to turn America into China. I want help Americans to turn China into America. We Chinese people do need such understanding of the Western civilization, of the faith. They need to know that God is there. We need to love people. Communism is totally anti all the faith, anti-God, anti-humanity. And we need to end such ideology. If not, they will turn into other names and keep working all over the world to bring damage. And we want to bring this kind of future to China, to Chinese people. Let them have the better future with people in America, in Europe, and we will have that kind of peaceful and this kind of safe future. So all the things what I'm working on with others.
Well, unlike in the United States, where we have the guarantee of freedom of speech, in China there is no guarantee of freedom of speech. On the contrary, there is a guarantee, an unwritten guarantee, that if you speak out against the Communist Party or say anything that is critical of China or the CCP, that you'll be punished, perhaps even disappeared. You spoke at the start of the epidemic, and you continue to speak out now, despite the threats and the intense criticism that may damage your career. And you do so not for profit or for any other motive, but the only motive you have is for the benefit of mankind by revealing China's production of bioweapons and in an attempt to really influence the entire world. You are a brilliant researcher, but even more importantly, you are a very brave lady. I want to thank you for coming on my show. It is an honor to have spent time with you today, Dr. Yan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bob. I know you have done a lot of things also to help people understand the value of freedom, of courage, and also understand the human rights. You have very deep understanding in this kind of knowledge, and you have very good vision in seeing it in the future. So that's why you have put a lot of effort in this field. I really appreciate all the effort you have put, and I believe people like you will bring a lot of influence to others to let them understand what happened and to warn them what to do to prevent the damage in the future. This is so important. And it's my honor that I can talk to you about all these things. And I know that there are a lot of things ongoing. And me and my team and my friends, people behind us, brave Chinese people, and we are working on stop this together with Americans. So we work together and we have our real power, because that is power of truth and power of courage and power of faith. And I do believe that we will win in a soon future, because God wants human live in the earth. And this is a way to keep humans safely live in the world with a good future.
Thank you so much. And again, for your bravery and your perseverance. Please don't stop.
Thank you. I won't.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Life Lessons with Dr. Bob. If you enjoyed these interviews with some of today's most influential thought leaders, please follow and rate the show on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget, you can also watch each episode on YouTube as well. We'll see you next time.